For our first topic of the gaming news, we have another Ubisoft blunder. Ubisoft is laying off more developers a week after shutting down an entire studio. Are we surprised? By Jake Valentine, a week after Ubisoft closed an entire studio, laying off over 70 developers in the process, the publisher is announcing more cost-cutting measures. First reported by IGN and confirmed by Ubisoft in a statement, 55 members of Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft Stockholm are being let go. Ubisoft also added that their decision has nothing to do with individual performance, recent deliveries, or the quality of the work by the teams. Instead, this is part of a voluntary leave program first launched in fall 2025 to help provide clear visibility into the structure and capacity required to support the two Massive and Ubisoft Stockholm work and sustainable overtime. I'll be honest. I mentioned it in the last article that we talked about Ubisoft. It is very suspicious that once people want to start having better working conditions and working pay, things magically shut down. It is very suspicious. Take any of this with a grain of salt, especially things like this statement and things like this statement. Take that with a grain of salt. Ubisoft has put out a lot of stinkers. People do not, people be, I was gonna say don't remember, we do remember, there is a lot of stinkers. Trust me, they are losing money. Remember, this company was on the verge of, I believe, bankruptcy at one point. People don't remember that. Let me see. I remember that. Let me see. Ubisoft bankruptcy. Yeah, it is financial. Even though it's not confirmed that was bankruptcy or leading to it, but there's a lot of financial issues going on in the company. They are losing money. Do you got? I'm gonna try to say. Put pressure on these companies to, one, treat their employees better, because if you things happen in a chain reaction event. Think about it like this. Say you go to work. Say you get a good pay. That will make me want to go to work even more, because now I know I have a good pay and I don't want to ruin that. Say on top of the good pay, you get treated well. Your boss cares about you. Your boss's boss cares about you. The whole company is employee first. That would make you feel good coming into work and actually want to put out projects. Now imagine the studio says, we will listen to your ideas and what you think our direction should go, and not try to pump out slop that just only spams microtransactions or half-baked stories or half-baked gameplay or unfinished games. It is not surprising. Coincidences sometimes are not real. But it is very interesting when former Ubisoft employees come out and leave. They say, we had enough. We are done. We do not like how we're being treated here. And because Ubisoft employees left, what spawned from Ubisoft employees saying we've had enough is, ignore the thumbnail part, I had to make a thumbnail for this, is this. People don't know. This company, yes, it's indie developed, but the people that were part of it, that founded it, were former Ubisoft employees. So it is not a coincidence that former employees, when they felt disrespected and not fairly treated in the workplace, and they leave and they decide to do their own things, art is made. This is why I say you need to treat your employees well, because When they leave, when they say, you know what, we're tired of the shenanigans, we're tired of the bull, we're just going to do our own thing. And they do their own thing, and your company is now financially struggling. Instead of releasing good games, good quality games, every game needs to be a 10 out of 10. That is the thing about it. Ubisoft, you do not need to produce a 10 out of 10. A 7 and an 8 is okay as well. But when you constantly start spamming live action, not live action, live service games after live service games, you guys are planning Division 3. If that flops, you're done. You need to do better. You need to do better. For example, I'll give a perfect example of a game I thought was good, and then the sequel wasn't so much. Let me find. What is the game? I don't want to look it up yet. Screw it. We're gonna go to Xbox Store. Let's go to Game Pass. Let's find it. I found it. I remember. What's happening here? Behave. Thank you, computer. Watch Dogs 2. This was a good game. This was a quality game. Not saying it was world beating or Game of the Year awards, but it was a good game. And you know what they followed it up with? Mid. Not even like I said, you don't need to be a 10 out of 10. But if you release an 8, you can release another 8. We are perfectly fine. Releasing another 8 is perfectly fine. We want to know that we can trust you to release quality. Even if you release it at a quantity level, at least release something that I can digest. Like I can go, okay, it wasn't game of the year worthy game, but it was a good game. Like people don't understand. You can round off a year with a good game. Like for instance, let's say Baldur's Gate 3 came out in February. Expedition 33 came out March. Silksong came out in June. And those are 9s and 10s. Even if there are 8s that come out after, that was still a good year for gaming. You could be a part of that good year. When I look at, we look at the great games and say, but what about the good games? I would like to mention these games like this, not just half-baked slop that did not work. But let's continue. The long-term direction for studios remains unchanged, and we will continue to serve as a global home and lead for the my point exactly. The Division franchise is still spamming that live service stuff. Move forward with an unannounced innovative tech project and refined team setup, and play a central role in the development of Snowdrop and Ubisoft Connect. The proposed restructuring will begin with a focus on individual agreements, and impacted employees are being informed directly and supported with care and respect in line with local regulations. Like I say, take this with a grain of salt. Because if they were treating you with respect, they wouldn't have shut down a studio the moment the word union was brought up. When a group unionizes and all of a sudden the studio has to shut down, it is very suspicious. IGN adds that development of the Division franchise, with which Massive Entertainment has developed, will be unaffected. Of course it is. That's where they want their money from. Instead of developing a good game, just focus on live service. Entertainment development will be unaffected. Ubisoft Stockholm's website references that they're currently working on an unannounced game featuring a new IP, as well as a Ubisoft Scaler, a new foundational technology leveraging the possibilities of cloud computing to enable unprecedented freedom and scale for the games of tomorrow. The Stockholm studio has most recently shipped Avatar Frontiers of another bad game. Does anyone remember this game came out in 2023? Does anyone even remember the one that came out last year? No. Mixed reviews is not the word I'd use. Both studies were also hard at work on the next entry, the Division franchise, which is reportedly unaffected by layoffs. Yeah, I'm not reading the rest of that. Because it's going to be the same thing. How they're just going to say we're pumping all our product into, what's it called? Pumping all our efforts into the Division 3. On next article. Here we go. Another shady moment. Not only is Rockstar potentially going to delay GTA 6, but they're also denying interim pay by the UK tribunal. Fired employees at the GTA studio, potentially, all this is alleged. Fired employees at GTA 6 studio Rockstar denied interim pay by UK tribunal. Union highlights firm's flimsy grounds for defense. The dispute between GTA 6 studio Rockstar and 30 of its former developers rages on, with those affected denied interim pay by the UK tribunal. At the time, January 12th, a judge ruled against making Rockstar to pay interim relief to its former developers, which the studio fired in October of last year in a move called by many union busting. Another one. Now say allegedly because nothing's confirmed. Whenever the words union spawn up in these companies that have studios, all of a sudden there's financial issues. There's all these things that pop up randomly that shuts down or lets go of people. Rockstar itself has claimed the affected staff were let go due to gross misconduct, but this didn't appease UK trade union Independent Workers, a union of Great Britain, the IWGB. Soon after the dismissals, the organization issued a legal claim against Rockstar, noting that all those affected were members of a union. Last week, the IWGB asked a judge to grant the fired developers interim relief, which is a method of financial support for people awaiting a full hearing. If the motion has been granted, the fired employees would have returned to Rockstar's payroll. However, it was not. Though the union, its members remain undeterred in the fight for justice, rightfully so. If you feel like you were hard done by with your firing, fight it. Because one thing companies do not like is when you push back and threaten legal action, because that's another expense. And if they lose, that's bad PR. And I'm talking about for like games too. It's not your regular, like Target have a lawsuit where some employee was hard done by and people will not care. They'll still shop. But gaming studios, some people might not care. But if they feel like you're hard done by and it's proven, not a good look. We are emerging from this hearing having now had a glimpse of Rockstar's flimsy grounds for defense, feeling bolstered in our claims that these firings were not just simply unjust, but also plainly unlawful. The IWGB said in a statement shared with Eurogamer. It added the judge stated in her ruling that there was no evidence of the respondent having suffered any adverse consequences, any adverse consequences as a result of these postings. The IWGB, see, I have to look at my screen to know that. Additionally said Rockstar had broken multiple procedural guidelines with its firing of the affected employees. This included the lack of disciplinary meetings, employees being unable to appeal until 6 weeks later, and zero evidence of an investigation. Comments relied on by Rockstar's lawyers were obtained without the knowledge of employees using a private union Discord described by the claimants as covert monitoring. Repeat that. Comments relied on by Rockstar's lawyers were obtained without the knowledge of employers using a private union Discord described by the claimants as covert monitoring. The union, let me get my thing up here. There we go. The union said it added the Discord members Rockstar claimed where journalists and competitors were in fact union officials and employees who had recently left the company. The IWGB said those in the server were still bound by the same non-disclosure agreements as the current employees. Reflecting on the judge's decision to deny interim relief to the former Rockstar employees, the IWGB said it knew this was going to be a long shot, and had it secured, it would have been unprecedented for a group of this number. However, the union said the latest development does not mean that Rockstar will not be found guilty of unfair dismissal. When the case goes to trial, IWGB President Alex Marshall stated the union is more confident than ever that a full and let's rewind the sentence. However, the union said in the latest statement, the latest development does not mean that Rockstar will be found guilty of unfair dismissal. When the case goes to trial, IWGB President Alex Marshall stated the union is more confident than ever that a full and substantive tribunal will find Rockstar's calculated attempt to crush a union to be not only unjust but unlawful, despite the refusal for interim relief. Meanwhile, an anonymous former Rockstar employee said the decision to fail to award obviously interim relief is a gut punch to everyone legitimately engaged in trade unions activities. The real world consequences of this are forcing valuable people to leave this country, upending their families and destroying their lives, and all because of their actions of ruthless, uncaring employers' quest to crush a trade union. They added they will continue to fight in order to clear their name and the names of others affected employees. The decision, while not in our favor, is not an exoneration of Rockstar's. But see, I gotta pronounce exoneration perfectly fine. And that was I've heard the word exoneration before many times, and that was the first time I ever seen it spelled out. I knew what exoneration was, but I couldn't pronounce. Where's the word at? Substantive. Like I still can't pronounce that. Substantive. Whatever. Substantive. We're not gonna. Exoneration of Rockstar's behavior and actions, merely a stumbling block on the road to justice they close. I would be very wary. If it's harder to do because it's not like music, where music is easy to be independent. But if you're a gaming developer or anyone that's interested in something like that, it's hard to do like the Expedition 33 route, where Expedition 33 start off as a Reddit post, the production of the game, finding people for that. So I don't really know, but sometimes take the risk on yourself. You can, if you find a group of people that you trust to do this, you can get yourself off the ground and produce a game of your own fruition. Sometimes it's good to get the experience though at studios, but some of these studios, they do not care about you like that. If it means the higher ups save their money, they will drop you. Keep that in mind. They will drop you. That's the unfortunate truth about business. On to the next article. Ubisoft reportedly cuts jobs as Abu Dhabi studio. As company-wide layoffs continue to hit staff. We're only 2 weeks in. Is that true? We're still 2 weeks? Because when I picked up this article, January 14th. Oh, yeah, yesterday. So, yeah, we are still 2 weeks. We are only 2 weeks into 2026, but the new year hasn't been kind to Ubisoft employees. Right after the closure of Ubisoft Halifax and the layoffs of Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft Stockholm, roles are reportedly being cut at Ubisoft Abu Dhabi. 2. Game industry news and analysis sites Game Developer shared on January 14th. Several employees at the studio were posting on LinkedIn about cuts happening as far back as December 2025. A bit of digging reveals similar posts by more ex-employees, with the latest appearing on the site earlier this week. The full impact of the layoffs at the studio is unclear, but it seems it's not being shut down. Ubisoft, they'll be shut down the moment they start mentioning union. But Ubisoft Abu Dhabi was opened in 2011 and serves as Ubisoft's regional hub for game development. The studio has worked on mobile games such as CSI Hidden Crimes, pictured above, and the big free-to-play sandbox MMO Growtopia. The new wave of layoffs arrived shortly after Ubisoft and Tencent formed the subsidiary Vantage Studios to house the Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry franchise. It is widely assumed those are the safest Ubisoft properties moving forward. I understand Rainbow Six and maybe Far Cry. Assassin's Creed, that's a teetering slope, but Rainbow Six with Siege, I think they're good for that. Which explains why studios not directly involved with them are currently being hit the hardest. Ubisoft's 2026 release schedule has yet to be defined, even if we know new AAA heavy hitters are in development as we speak. For now, we're expecting Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake to help boost the numbers, and we heard of a surprise definitive edition of the first Division game earlier this week. We do not need a Division special edition for Division again.